Hi everybody, Dr. Zach here, and I've got an interesting article to share with you today. And I would actually go as far as to say that if you only have one article that you're going to take and you're going to pay attention to regarding COVID-19, this would be the article that I would recommend you put some time and energy into looking at. It's been forwarded to me by several people. It actually comes from the Johns Hopkins student newsletter. And it was published November 22nd, 2020, so it's timely. And the title of it is A Closer Look at the U.S. Deaths Due to COVID-19. Interesting read, and I'll just kind of give you an introduction by reading the first part of it. It says, after retrieving data from the CDC website, Genevieve Briand compiled a graph representing percentages of total deaths per age category from early February to early September. According to the new data, the U.S. currently ranks first in total COVID-19 cases in the world. We've got more cases than any other country. We rank first in the new cases per day of COVID-19, and we rank first in the total number of COVID-19 deaths. Genevieve Briand, Assistant Director of the Applied Economics Master's Degree Program at Johns Hopkins, critically analyzed the effect of COVID-19 on U.S. deaths using data from Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in her webinar entitled COVID-19 Deaths, Look at the U.S. Data. And so here's a gal who is an economist. So I mean, she's good at looking at numbers, and she's taken data from the CDC, which is arguably the resource that we're going to as being the valid numbers regarding COVID-19 and the statistics that are kept on that. And the article is good. I'll give a link to it so you can actually go in and check it out yourself. It's like I say, if you only pick one thing to read today about COVID-19, I would read this one, and I would even go as far as to share this with everybody that you know. And the reason for that is it's interesting. It starts off, it says from mid-March to mid-September, U.S. death totals have reached 1.7 million people, of which 200,000 of those, or roughly 12% of the total deaths, are COVID-19 related. Instead of looking directly at COVID-19 deaths, Briand focused on the total deaths per age group and per cause of death in the United States, and used this information to shed light on the effects of COVID-19. And like I've said for several months now, she goes on to say that she explained that the significance of COVID-19 on U.S. deaths can be fully understood only through comparison of the number of total deaths in the United States. So she's saying that, we're not necessarily convinced that the numbers on COVID-19 are completely accurate, but we can get an idea of the impact that it's having on our nation by looking at the total number of deaths that our nation has experienced this year. And we would expect that in a pandemic where we've rearranged our entire lives, we've seen it impact our children in the education systems, our families, our finances, our jobs, our political system, our political beliefs. It's impacted every aspect of our society, that we would expect that this COVID-19 pandemic would profoundly have affected the number of people that have actually died as a whole in the United States. So she goes on to say, surprisingly, the deaths of older people stayed the same before and after COVID-19. I'm going to repeat that. Surprisingly, the deaths of older people stayed the same before and after COVID-19. To me, this is kind of a big sentence, because what age group has been the biggest risk factor of dying from COVID-19? It's been the older people. She goes on to say, since COVID-19 mainly affects the elderly, experts expected an increase in the percentage of deaths in the older age groups. However, this increase is not seen in the CDC data. In fact, the percentages of deaths among all age groups remain relatively the same. So this is looking at all the different age groups, the number of deaths, the rate of deaths prior to and since COVID-19 is relatively unchanged. She goes on to say, and this should be kind of a Captain Obvious response here, but it says, the reason we have a higher number of reported COVID-19 deaths among older individuals than younger individuals is simply because every day in the United States, older individuals die in higher numbers than younger individuals. That's what everything has been told, right? We have increased risk of older people dying from this than younger people, but guess what? Not any more than we're dying before COVID-19. So then what she goes on to say is that basically we're not necessarily seeing a profound change in number of deaths, and that everything really looks similar to what we've had in the past, except for how the deaths are classified. She said typically we're going to have seasonal upswings and downswings in the number of deaths because of infections, because of stress, because of all the seasonal stuff that goes on, and we've seen that same thing happen this year. But typically when we have a seasonal influx in the number of deaths, it's going to be not just from an influenza or a pneumonia or some kind of a respiratory infection, but we're going to see increased numbers of heart disease. We're going to see increased numbers of cancer deaths. We're going to see increased numbers of every different category that's going on. And what makes this year unusual is that we've had that seasonal increase where we see, our COVID season instead of a flu season this year. But we're seeing a massive increase of COVID deaths and actually a decrease in heart disease, decrease in cancer, decrease in influenza, decrease in every other thing that's out there. And so it kind of begs the question is it about how we're labeling the deaths? And we've been talking about this all along. Interesting, as we go through this, if we take a look at the data that she presents, is that this year doesn't look different than other years in what's happening with people dying in the United States. And the first thing that I think we could take from that is well, good. So all this fear and panic that we've been getting just bombarded with for the last 9 months, maybe nothing is different. So maybe we could just kind of go, phew. The other direction that I go with it is I think that we should be incredibly angry because it indicates we've been lied to. We've had freedoms taken away. We've completely altered our life. We have basically bowed down to this medical system that says, here's the way that you're going to live. And we basically have just given our lives away to this tyrannical approach to dealing with this horrific disease that is not causing any more deaths than we would normally have expected in any of the age groups that are affected. Hopefully it'll stir us up. I want this article to get out because I think everybody needs to kind of be shaken awake from what the media has been telling us so that we can shift ourselves away from the panic and the fear of COVID-19 and are we ever going to get our life back to normal and what that looks like. USA Today, I saw an article, and I think that this is, again, just kind of it shows the direction things are going. It says that a vaccine stimulus is the shot in the arm our country needs. It's time to solve COVID-19 vaccine distribution problem and stimulus at the same time by giving Americans $1,500 for getting vaccinated. This just points to this whole thing has been put together as an opportunity for us to get this vaccine into as many people as possible for an identification purpose. And I would encourage you that if you haven't researched the COVID-19 vaccine, to look into it. This is a diabolical scam that's going on. And they've actually said that, in polling people, they're saying less and less people are excited about lining up to get this vaccine because they're just a little bit concerned about it. They're a little bit fearful. They may not be against vaccines in general, but this one just kind of has them, being on an extra high alert. So how does this guy say do we go about fixing that? Well, we need a stimulus package, right? Our economy has been completely destroyed by all of this pandemic that we've been fed. And so here's a perfect solution. You show your proof of your vaccine and you get your $1,500 stimulus check. Man, something stirs up inside of me that says this does not smell good. So before you line up, to sign for your stimulus check and get that vaccine, dig deeper, find out more information. But I'll put the link to this article, the Johns Hopkins article on there. I encourage you to read it. I encourage you to take and look at it and to kind of say, does this story line up with what we've been told for the last 9 months? And I would get this out to as many people as possible. It's time for us to wake up, to realize that we've been led down this dark path and we need to stand up for our rights. We need to take back who we are as humans. And we need to recognize that our bodies are made to be well if we take care of them. And we don't have to fear some novel virus that's got the media up in a frenzy. So anyway, till next time, this is Dr. Zach. God bless you guys. Make today amazing.